Hello, everyone, and welcome to Collider Movie Talk. My name is Mark, and on today's show, we solve the DCEU's problems. But all that is coming after our breaking story that involves Jimmy Bond and a possible director for his 25th movie. Joining me today on this lovely panel is the one, the only Mr. Movie Talk Notes himself, Mark Reilly.
Wow, I get the first call. Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Is the first call, is that something you guys talk about when I'm not around?
Well,
the first call?
we have bets, I thought, that who is Ellis going to go to first?
My mom always writes the Christmas card every year, and it's a big competition between me and my two siblings as to who gets mentioned first. Never happened to me yet.
Well, I appreciate
chronological.
it.
Who's oldest?
That's the excuse she gives. I also think if I gave her a couple grandbabies, I'd get mentioned first, which hopefully I'd never get mentioned first. Speaking of, classy Clarke, Wolfe is here.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here and be number 2 on the Christmas card.
So excited to have you back. And Jon Schnepp as well, the host of Collider Heroes.
What's going on? I'm so excited to be last because that's the way I roll.
But you get and Jon Schnepp
There
on
you
the
go.
card. It's written out.
Yeah, and a very special guest today.
Well, the black sheep of the Collider family.
It's starring Mark Reilly, Clarke Wolfe, and Jon Schnepp with special guest appearance by Copster. I'm just kidding. Stay back in the booth. Our breaking story today comes from Mark Reilly, courtesy of his email to me this morning we have a new frontrunner looking at directing the new James Bond movie. The last James Bond movie that will star Daniel Craig could be the first Bond movie directed by Mr. Danny Boyle, ye of Slumdog Millionaire fame, 127 Hours fame. He does zombie movies. He does independent movies. Most recently, T2 Trainspotting sequel. I am excited about this decision because I think Danny Boyle can lend a fresh vision to what desperately needs that right now. As great as Sam Mendes was with Skyfall, I thought he was that dreary and boring and dull with Spectre, and I don't think he gave Daniel Craig or any of the characters much room to operate in. I think Danny Boyle can be that guy to give Daniel Craig a proper send-off to his James Bond legacy. Jon Schnepp, how do you feel?
Definitely. I thought Spectre was a bore. You know, it was one of the worst Bond films that Craig was in. So when I heard he was giving it up, I was like, good. I don't want to see any more Bond. But now you add Danny Boyle, he might be able to inject something a little bit different from what we've seen in all the other Bond films. He's an incredible director. He's super creative. Anybody who's seen Trainspotting or Trainspotting 2, less so Trance. But, you know, everybody's allowed to have a couple of poops, you know, that are just don't flush
you
properly.
should have one a day. Do you think that it's more Sam Mendes directing Spectre
No,
than
not at all.
wasn't or do you blame Daniel Craig?
I don't blame anyone in general. I mean, the script wasn't that good. I thought there was a lot of overacting going on. I thought there were some of the dumbest scenes I've ever seen in any Bond movie where there was like literally like Kinko Xeroxes of all the different baddies in a building that's about to explode. It's like, who's the art director for Spectre? You know, it's like, it was just so much dumb stuff I can't even really go into it because it was upsetting to see Blofeld done so badly after we've been waiting for all these years to see that done right and to see the reveal of Spectre. They ruined it. So I look at James Bond number 5 with Daniel Craig as a way to, you know, you had a good number 1, bad number 2, good number 3, bad number 4, good number 5.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that Shep brings up, Clarke, because I wonder if Danny Boyle would want to come in and do some sort of plotline that's completely different than what Spectre left us off with. Because the one thing you can say about Spectre is that it left some room to explore more in that world. Do we want to continue to go into that world? Is that what Danny Boyle wants to do? Or does he want to do something totally different with Craig's last Bond?
I think he's going to do something totally different. I think he's going to do something that's pretty much a standalone, especially considering that I don't think Daniel Craig really is going to come back after this one. I really think he's done after this. And so I wouldn't imagine that he would be opening anything up or continuing anything from Spectre, which wasn't well received by fans or critics, and I'm actually really surprised at myself that I didn't think of this anytime we've had this conversation. Like Danny Boyle never came to my mind, and honestly I feel like he is the perfect choice for what the Broccoli family wants. They're a bit conservative and traditional in what they see Bond as, and I feel like Danny Boyle is a really good choice for that while being innovative and exciting, and just like I feel like he's at the top of his game. I just interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he is smart and he's passionate and he is like awake and he's with it. So like I think he's a perfect choice.
Reilly, what about Danny Boyle's IMDb page speaks to you that says he's the guy to do a huge action extravaganza like a Bond movie?
Well, Schnepp kind of mentioned it. It's his Trainspotting films that if you look at that, if he can make heroin addiction fun, then he can make He can take Bond.
Easy, kids. Don't listen to Mr.
He
Reilly.
can make Bond because you said it. The Spectre movie didn't kind of land, and if you go back now, Christoph Waltz said he's definitely out. He was on the red carpet at one of the award shows, and he's like, "I'm out. I don't think I'm doing it anymore." I'm paraphrasing, of course. So I think they're moving away from that. If you look at two of my favorite movies are Trainspotting and T2. I mean, I was shocked that T2 was so
Same
good.
here. Not Terminator 2.
Not Terminator 2,
T2,
T2, Trainspotting. It was a nice progression to see, like, to take Renton, played by Ewan McGregor,
Right.
and do it so well years later. And you had the book that you could base this on. The source material, Porno, was a fantastic book, but they were able to change it a bit and really just tie it in together, and you want that kind of fun. His visuals, if you look at Slumdog Millionaire or you look at the Trainspotting films, I love his visuals. I love his kinetic energy that he has in all of his movies. I think it could just play out really well in the Bond universe.
Yeah, I think I love hearing from you guys too. So make sure you guys comment and let us know. Is Danny Boyle the right choice? Right now, he's not inked to do it. He is just considered the front runner to direct James Bond, and it seems to be pretty universal here on the panel that we agree on something. Will that continue to our first official story? Given what it is, probably not. Do we have a locked-in slate for the DCEU? Well, we can tell you this. There was a brief mention in the Hollywood Reporter about another executive shakeup that hopes to steady the ship at Warner's DC unit, and that is the hiring of Chantal Nong as a Warner executive. The trade also mentioned that after Aquaman debuts this fall, we're going to get Shazam as the next movie, and then anything could happen, but you are going to get the next wave of movies that will likely include the Flashpoint film and Batgirl. In January, you'll remember that Walter Hamada was named as one of the new leaders of Warner's DC Film Group as well. And if it sounds like I'm not that excited talking about Hamada or Nong, it's probably because I'm a fan of DC characters and I want to see great DC movies. I know executives can help that to a point, but I don't care about this simply because I've heard about so many shifts at the top. Is this going to be the move? Chantal Nong sounds great. She's got a nice track record working on movies like 300 series and stuff like that. Is that going to get me out of bed in the morning and say, yes, this is going to right the ship? The only thing that is going to steady the ship and make fans believe in DC or the DCU again is if we get a marquee name or a marquee character back in their full glory. Y'all remember when Wonder Woman came out and Wonder Woman was released and we all were like, oh God, finally, okay, now the ship is steady and we can just sail into Justice League. And then Justice League happens, which is a movie I liked, but it was kind of a mess, and you had two different directors and a whole lot of writers, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and it felt like a bunch of different movies, none of which added up to what fans hoped Justice League might be. So now we're back to square one. Jon Schnepp, what can we possibly do, short of announce another executive, to get fans excited about the DCEU?
Well, they keep announcing people, and it's like, I'm glad somebody got a job. I guess that's my opinion about it. It's like, well, this person, I'm glad they're vice president. Maybe they get a couple extra $1 million a year. I don't know how that really affects me as far as a film goer or a fan of these comic book characters being brought to life. It's the same exact thing we've already heard since before Justice League came out. You have Aquaman, you have Shazam, and you have Wonder Woman, and then nothing else. And so they made a lot of announcements at Comic-Con last year. They threw a lot of names up there, and nothing has really happened. So we have 10 or 15 different properties that none of them have actually gone into production. And nothing is been official, even though we've heard about Chris McKay doing Nightwing, and we've heard about Joss Whedon working on Batgirl, and we've heard about all these different things. Nothing is actually on the books or official. Even The Batman is not an official movie yet, even though we've heard about Matt Reeves and we've heard about a new Batman. And we've heard about Ben Affleck being tired of playing Batman. We've heard about all this stuff. You know how bored and tired I am of even having to repeat this? As I've heard about this. I'm like lulling myself to sleep with sheer boredom. And
that's the host of Collider Heroes, ladies
having
and
to
gentlemen.
report on this. Literally, thank God I have comic books that I get to read, and other people are making stuff, because this kind of stuff is just like, wow, the way to ruin everything that you're trying to do in the future is exactly what DC and Warner Brothers is doing. They're ruining it for every single audience member who wants to see them do something good. They're not doing the right thing. Announcing somebody as a vice president, I don't care.
Okay, but how do we fix that? Because to be fair, it's not like they made this huge banner and like they flew airplanes around the beach and said, "Congratulations, we got a new exec." It was a thing in the Hollywood Reporter, and and the reason why we're talking about it is because hopefully a new exec can come in and right the ship. If you are in the ear of Nong or whoever else you need to be in the ear of, what do you tell them is the next play to get this thing back on track?
Well, I would say, I mean, and yeah, they didn't fly any banners or anything, but they've been very. Their announcements about Walter Hamada are these kind of very loose and non-sticky kind of course corrections, where they're sort of like, "Look, we're doing things." Look, don't look behind the curtain. We're doing things. That's what it feels like to the general audience, at least to myself and all my friends that I talk with about this. It feels like, well, you're just moving things around. You don't have a Feige. You have no one in control. In fact, no one is in control, and you guys are like kind of, herky-jerky about everything. You make weird reactionary decisions about every single film that you're involved in. So there's no kind of support system. What would I tell them? I would say, look, you've announced like 15 movies. There's like 3 or 4 Joker films and Harley Quinn films. I mean, just announce a Batman film, announce a Man of Steel film. We've already got Wonder Woman. You have your Trinity. That's what you need to do. You need to plant a date down for this supposed Matt Reeves, the Batman film. Say it's coming out October 2019. How hard was that? And then actually make that happen. I mean, you are a film production company, aren't you? You make movies. That's kind of the thing where you're sort of like, look at all these other companies constantly making films. And yet we've got one Aquaman movie and a kind of like a weird scared trepidation. You're DC. Come on, get it together. That's as a fan, I'm like, just get it together and make some decisions and stick to them.
Clarke, executive shuffling, does that come on your radar as far as it may be in comparison to what Marvel does, where you don't really hear a lot about the executive change because it just seems like Kevin Feige is the guy. He's the guy that represents all that goes on at Marvel. DC needs somebody like that. We don't have their name handy. Is that what is missing?
I think it's a big part of what is missing because I think that the studio needs to trust someone and at the end of the day, have the buck stop there. Whether it's a success or whether it's a failure or whatever, the bigger franchise needs a direction. And right now, like Schnepp was saying, it feels rudderless. It feels, where is this going? Like nobody is steering the ship. And so, while I think we're all a little exhausted with like the shakeups here or there, I think that would be something maybe not to a general audience, but to people who pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes. I do think that that's something that might inspire a bit more confidence.
Yeah, I mean, Reilly, I think you really have to look at this like a sports team right now, and you need the coaches to act like coaches, and you need the owners to act like owners, where if a player comes in and they seem disgruntled, they're cut. And it doesn't matter if it's Ben Affleck. It doesn't matter how famous they are. If you continue to dance around the fact that you may or may not be Batman in the future, you have to cut bait with that. I don't care how famous you are, because at the end of the day, what Justice League did provide to me was a lot of potential with Ray Fisher as Cyborg and Jason Momoa as Aquaman and Ezra Miller as the Flash. But it's hard to gain any continuity when Batman is like, well, is he going to come back? Do we want him back? Are we going to make other Batman movies? So I agree with Schnepp's point that we need to announce a definitive Batman to take us forward into the next generation with the rest of the Justice League that we already have. Is that the way to do it? Is that what you would tell Nong?
I mean, I know that Batman is Batman and he's the most popular. You always go to the Nolan Batman trilogy and you go, oh, The Dark Knight is, crossed $1 billion and it's Batman, and they had Ben Affleck, but I don't know why we can't get a Man of Steel sequel. I don't know why you can't look at Superman as one of those people, like you mentioned, Schnepp. We have Wonder Woman 2 coming. There's one piece of your kingdom that can work really, really well. You have Wonder Woman 2 coming. They're casting right now. Patty Jenkins is writing it. It's gonna happen. I don't know why they are so afraid to make Superman something. I mean, they tried very, very hard in Justice League to actually put Superman in the very first scene of the movie. Stupid mustache hanging out on his face in an uncanny valley and all. And I just watched Justice League the other night. It is such a bummer to watch this movie. It is put together like a puzzle piece in the dark. And I just don't understand why that movie. Oh, it's so frustrating. I'm bored of talking about this because you look at Justice League and then you look at what likely is going to happen next with Batgirl and the Flash. Batgirl aside, you look at how they're now trying to lighten up the mood in the DCU. So And maybe Flashpoint is the thing that's going to reboot this whole thing, like they say. Fine, reboot it. And then give me Man of Steel 2. But keep Henry Cavill because he hasn't gotten
They're
his
not going to
due.
do that.
I know they're not, and that's what's so
I
frustrating.
wouldn't get that frustrated about it. Like, look at it this way.
Well, as a Superman fan, I am frustrated.
Eventually, you'll get a Superman movie, but I think what the way the executives are looking at it, you have to take yourself out of the realm of being a fan and liking Superman and look at it from a monetary standpoint. Man of Steel didn't do what they wanted. Batman v Superman, even though that was supposed to be a Man of Steel 2, and Batman was in it, one of the biggest money makers, didn't make the money they wanted. And then Justice League barely made enough in its whole 91 days to equal what Black Panther made in 4 days.
Black Panther's
so
beating it
what
now.
I'm saying is, like, the Justice League, which had Batman and Superman,
And Wonder
failed.
Woman.
And Wonder Woman.
Failed at the box office. So their entire universe is going the opposite way of making money. It's sinking. So the whole idea of like making a Flashpoint, all these things, that's why fans like myself are not that excited about it, because they've already, in essence, kind of ruined their universe by not trusting their filmmakers. Look, I was one of the people who hated Batman v Superman, the theatrical cut. I liked the Ultimate Cut. Did I want to see what he was going to do with Justice League and finish up exactly what he was trying to do? Yeah, because even with all of the films that Zack Snyder has made that aren't that good, they're great films, I think, personally, that he's made. I think Watchmen is fantastic. So we could debate that. But look, Justice League, they wanted to change it. They changed it. They brought Whedon in. He filmed a lot of different things. You have a hodgepodge film. I can't watch it again. That's where I'm at. I saw it once. I liked it when I saw it. You know, I drank the Kool-Aid because I saw it like 3 weeks before it came out. You're like, that was kind of fun to see those people hang out together. You forget about certain things like a plot and villains.
It's hard to watch on a second viewing. And to go to your coach reference, you know what was great about the MCU? Hate to bring up Marvel, but here I go. You never knew Kevin Feige was the coach through the first few films. You were like sitting there enjoying the ride because you get the Avengers setup in Iron Man, then you get Incredible Hulk, then Iron Man 2, then Thor and Captain America, and you're digging what you're seeing. And then slowly but surely, you're like, who's this Kevin Feige? And then everything starts to take shape and he starts to become that coach. He's like the Bill Belichick of the MCU, of like, oh, look at that.
There it goes.
There
So
it goes.
excited.
There it goes. We need a coach.
I need a coach that can clean this up.
No, I like
So
it.
I just wish that, there was somebody that stepped to the forefront, like we thought with Jeff Johns in the DCEU, that we could trust. I don't think there's still a coach.
I think, you know what, if I was in charge of Warner Brothers right now, no offense to anybody who's working there right now, I'd fire all of them and hire Greg Berlanti, who's in charge of the CW universe.
Yes.
Now, look, a lot of people who are commenting on Movie Talk saying constantly, like, you're always hating on DC. Like, I think the DC television universe is incredible. And I think, like, all of the characters that they've brought into the television universe from DC, they're doing a fantastic job. They're doing an incredible job with everything. And I would give Greg Berlanti a big hand of that success and say, why don't you take this DC universe, maybe with Flashpoint. And I saw Game Night, and I'm not mad at those guys for if they are actually making Flashpoint and they both love the Flash and they do something and they configure the universe. I think going forward, you get all new characters, and just recast everybody, brand new universe.
Okay, so Clarke, you seem to be on the same page with Schnepp as far as getting Berlanti in, but do you recast everybody as well?
No, I don't think you recast for everybody, and I don't think that you need to completely start from scratch. But to both of your points, I think the issue here, why you're not getting a Man of Steel 2, is because DC, the people who started the DCEU, as we know it now, don't like Superman.
Yeah,
that is the answer to your question.
Obvious, yeah.
So I say that to say, someone like Berlanti gets these characters. He gets who Supergirl is. He gets who Jon Johns is. He gets who the Flash is. He gets who the Arrow is. Like, he gets who they are. And I always say this about Feige, and it's true, whether it was a business decision or not, he let all the characters be who the characters were.
Absolutely.
And he found the directors who actually liked those characters, who weren't trying to retrofit Superman to be, I really want to make a Batman movie, so let's just make Superman like Batman. Or let's just he's kind of a wuss, so let's just change all of that. Like, this is not who these characters are. And so, yes, I think somebody like Berlanti, who actually loves each individual character and understands why each individual character comes together to actually make Justice League, the Justice League, like, that's who you need involved.
That's right, yeah. Interesting time to cut to a wide shot, but there we go. This is just like our own little Justice League we're making here right now. I will point out to everybody that Wonder Woman was the highest grossing of the standalone DCEU movies, and it cost the least amount of money to make. And I think that Man of Steel is also a celebrated movie in the DC. It's probably the second most celebrated, if not the first one. And that is also a situation where, say we went about Zack Snyder, he had the most leverage at the time of making that movie to make the movie he wanted to make before he had to shoehorn all this other stuff in. There's just little hints of, oh, Bruce Wayne might be in this universe. And same thing with Wonder Woman, where that's her story. So just focus on telling those stories, and then we can all come together, hopefully one day down the road. Smells like coffee in here. We're going to move on to our next story, and that is the casting for the upcoming It sequel. Hey, it's It again, but they're going to be adults. However, they might be some famous ones, including Jessica Chastain. This is according to Variety. She is in negotiations to star as the adult version of Beverly. Variety also confirms that director Andy Muschietti is set to return, with Gary Dauberman penning the script, and indeed, Bill Skarsgård is set to return as Pennywise. Pop, 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 pop. The sequel is scheduled for release on September 6th, 2019, with production targeted to start this summer. So Clarke, Wolfe, Jessica Chastain is, I think the tea leaves are pointing towards her actually, getting her John Hancock on paper to play Beverly. She has a great relationship with Andy Muschietti going back to when they worked on Mama together, which is a really cool underrated horror movie. And my question to you is, if we say we have Jessica Chastain in this movie, do we need to have other stars in the movie, or do we just, is she good and we just build around her?
I think that she gives you leverage to cast whoever you want. I also think the bigger franchise gives you leverage to cast the right people for the roles. I do think that aside from her fondness personally and professionally for Andy and his producing partner and sister Barbara, I think that this signals that they are going to be taking this franchise really seriously. They're taking the second installment, which is admittedly less fun because it's the grown-ups doing this stuff and not watching kids run around and doing
interesting point is that we're going to be watching kids do something in one movie, and then they turn into adults, and adults' problems are a lot less fun to deal with.
That's the thing. I mean, if you read the novel, you know that Beverly is in a very dangerous domestic abuse situation. Like, we're going to be watching Jessica Chastain get the shit beat out of her that's like, this stuff is really unpleasant, more unpleasant than little children getting their arms ripped off. So, or in a different kind of way. So I think that somebody like Jessica Chastain really shows that WB and the Muschiettis are taking this project, like, it's going to be a drama first with the scary stuff in the backdrop, which is great. But to answer your question, I think it would be great. We can have fun casting and speculating all day. I think that there are some really cool, maybe not necessarily A-list Hollywood stars, but definitely like movie stars. I think Sterling K. Brown would be a great addition to this cast. He's obviously a superstar on television, winning all of the awards for This Is Us, and obviously breaking out with People versus O.J. Simpson, but he's not an Academy Award nominee like Jessica Chastain. So I think you have the freedom to pull smaller names, huge talents who are just about to break into Hollywood A-list, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, Reilly, I like Clarke's angle on this. The casting of Jessica Chastain might portend to a more serious, dramatic take as opposed to just a straight horror movie. Are we still going to get our scares with it as well?
Yeah, absolutely, because you have Pennywise. So there is an automatic draw now because Skarsgård knocked it out of the park as Pennywise. He's now an iconic villain up there with your Jasons and your Freddys. Like, you will see this image and you go, oh, there's it. Now, the coming of age story with the kids, like what's going on, like if we're talking about Chastain, what happened with young Beverly is awful in the first chapter. And then, Clarke, you alluded to what happens later on in her life is awful for an adult. So it's going to be about the audiences. That's the horror. That's what Stephen King did in the novel, is that, yes, you have a killer clown trying to kill you, but the things that the kids are dealing with and the adults are even more scary. What they're dealing with. You mentioned Bev. I mean, this is going to be... I think that's what's drawing Chastain to the role. I think she can really, especially with what is she talking about online, the social commentary that she's doing right now online is going to play into her character. So I'm wondering if they're then going to go to maybe another big name. I don't want to kind of classify big actor, A-list,
right,
B-list, all these different things. But George, who are you going to cast as George? And then maybe, I don't know if there's, you just kind of fill it out. I keep hearing Bill Hader as one of the names, fan casting, which I think is perfect.
John Squires from Bloody Disgusting yesterday had this great thread that I retweeted where basically he cast Patrick Wilson as all of the male roles. But I do think that, which is
That's
great.
perfect.
And it's really funny. You should definitely check him out on Twitter. But I say that to say that somebody like a Patrick Wilson, who again we know who he is, but and lends that credit and that acting respect. Somebody like him could be great too. So there's a lot of choices.
Well, but this story, to say if are we going to be scared? Yes, there are so many wonderful scares in later on that they do in this for the characters, but there's also some crazy head trippy stuff that I'm wondering how they're going to do a great balance. So I think finding your right actors, whether they're A-list or what, and balance it with that's what's going to be interesting.
It really is the balance. I mean, Schnepp, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to be a very scary movie. Is it going to be as big of a box office success just because you don't have that fun juxtaposition of a scary clown, but also just these kids who form this gang? That's a fun movie in and of itself.
I think it's going to be a bigger hit. I think it's going to be bigger than the first hit because I think, we're underselling the scariness of what it is to be an adult and to be in adult situations. And Stephen King, what he writes about mainly are adult situations. Like Pet Sematary is the loss of your kid. I mean, if you look at every single one of his books, it's about adults dealing with trauma and horror. And like Pennywise is just a side effect. He's going to be the thing coming in to question all of your fears. So I think it can be not only a better film, a stronger film, but a scarier, more psychological film. So I'm looking forward to it. And casting someone like Jessica Chastain just ups that ante. She's such an incredible actress. So to see her re-team, hopefully, with Machete is going to only make that film stronger. And whoever they end up casting, I have faith that they're going to be able to pull it off. I just don't want to see the kids that much. Not that there was anything wrong with those kids, but I think it should be the adults' film, and the kids should only show up when they're referencing certain shared events. I would like to see that, or maybe they show up in nightmares or dream sequences, but I don't want it to be 50-50, like half, Stranger Things, half in the present, So I feel like I get it. I loved the first It. And I love those kids in the first It. And if they're coming back, they should only be back in flashbacks, and this should be the adult version.
You heard Jon Schnepp. Get those kids off the stage.
Yeah.
It's time for the adults in the room. There's a very adult film coming out this weekend called Annihilation. It's a sci-fi thriller directed by Alex Garland, and it is a deep, deep exploration into the psyche and what could happen to the future of Earth based on Jeff Vandermeer's best-selling Southern Reach trilogy. It stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, and Oscar Isaac. And then, like we said, Alex Garland was also the genius behind Ex Machina, and he directed 28 Days Later. Also coming out this weekend is Game Night. Max and Annie's weekly game night gets kicked up a notch when Max's brother Brooks arranges a murder mystery party. All hell breaks loose as the competitors to solve the case. They start to learn that neither the game nor Brooks are what they seem to be. Now, Jon Schnepp, if I'm looking at just the marquees on here, I'm going to see Annihilation, which I did get a chance to check out last night. However, you went to a screening of Game Night, and you said it is?
Yeah, I wanted to correct you, though. Danny Boyle directed 28 Days Later. Alex Garland wrote it.
I'll have to talk to the guy who does the notes on Movie Talk about that.
Anyway.
Hey, I didn't put that there. That was all you.
Easy. Let's talk about Game Night.
Talk to old Butterfingers over here.
Game Night was incredible. That's all I could say is, like, I went to see the film with a little bit of trepidation because it is the guys who made Vacation, one of the films that I absolutely hated, the remake of Vacation. And so I saw the trailer, and I was like, I also know that these are the guys who are up for making Flashpoint. So I was like, all right. But the trailer kind of half sold me. Holly and I went and saw it last night and laughed our asses off. It is literally a surprise. I think it's going to be a sleeper hit. It is so incredibly well made, well directed, well written, and well acted. I can't say enough. Go see that movie after you've seen Black Panther. Go see Game Night and then see Annihilation. I feel like that. Like, I can't wait to see Alex Garland's. I loved Ex Machina. So to hear that he's doing a science fiction series now, he's doing that, and then we've got Annihilation on a big sci-fi head. Love it. But Game Night was so unexpected. It came out of left field. And I guarantee you that you will be like, whoa, like I literally jumped out of my seat like 3 times and caught myself like, what am I doing? It got me. It sucked me in. It's suspenseful and hilarious at the same time.
Wow, Jon Schnepp really selling Game Night. Clarke Wolfe, did he sell you enough to see that over Annihilation this weekend?
I want to see both. I choose both.
That is not allowed in my world of nothing but competition.
And I have seen none of these. I don't get invited to cool fancy screenings like you boys do. So, and my Movie Pass got canceled. Thanks a lot, Movie Pass.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
they're shenanigans. But anyway, so I am really excited about Annihilation. If you haven't listened to it, I was a guest on the Top 10 podcast. With
I haven't been invited to that yet.
Well, there you go.
Me
With Roca and Nost, and we talked about women in sci-fi, and that was really fun. So give that a listen. But I love Jason Bateman, and I love Rachel McAdams. But we were saying before we started rolling, I really haven't seen much. I've seen the posters everywhere, but I haven't seen their faces on them. It's just those little pieces with the little thing tipped over, which is that's it. Yeah. Which is cute, but like, what the hell is this movie? I don't know.
Is it part cheesy? What's happening?
This marketing is very bad. It sounds like a great movie with two actors that I love, but this is very bad.
No, but that poster, and then you see that little dog. Remember that dog when you see the movie.
Dog looks like Rufus.
Yeah, remember that dog when you see it.
Always remember the dog. I'm keeping my fingers crossed now. Reilly, which movie are you checking out?
Annihilation first, and then awesome. I'm so glad to hear the Schnepp because the first Game Night trailer came out, and I went, yeah, I really like that. That was a good trailer.
And it doesn't ruin everything either.
Okay, good. It looks like a really fun comedy. I'm glad the Flashpoint directors are doing something great because Vacation was awful. That was an awful movie. That was on TV the other day, and I had to turn it off because it was
sucked.
It sucked.
Yeah, but at least you were
sucked.
watching TV and you could blow right past it. Poor Jon Schnepp had to watch it on an airplane.
I didn't really have many options except screaming to myself silently. And Holly kept looking over at me. She was like, "You really hating this? Why did I have to stop watching it?" I was like, then I was hate watching it.
Man, you have visceral reactions to comedies, either good or bad. You run very hot or very cold.
I do.
That's a good audience member for you right there. If you can get them going. I'm still emotionally unpacking from everything I saw last night with Annihilation. It's a good movie, and now I'm just it's made it to good, and now I'm just figuring out everything else that happened in it. But
head trip, huh?
It's a deep trip inside. It's a journey to the center of your mind.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Time for agree or disagree. Our first story is the Hollywood Reporter saying that Godzilla and Kong Skull Island scribe Max Borenstein has come on board to do Robert Rodriguez's new sci-fi thriller Hypnotic. Rodriguez is attached to direct and produce the project, with details being kept secret about the story. Sources, however, for the trade describe the movie as a grounded cop thriller with sci-fi elements. We don't have a release date yet. Mark Reilly, do we have an interest?
I have an interest somewhat. I want to see how Alita Battle Angel plays out. I know they moved it from a summer into a December. Right. Oh, they did a horrible move with that movie. They dropped that thing in right with like Aquaman and all these other big movies. And so I'm wondering if it's going to disappear because I loved the trailer. So I'm hoping Rodriguez is back. I haven't really seen. What was the last thing he directed? Yeah,
I know he did Sharp Boy and Lava Girl.
I'm not going there either. That's the thing. I haven't seen.
I mean, he's been doing
he's doing a lot of TV
movies.
also on El Rey.
Dust El Dawn, yeah. So I want a return for Rodriguez and Max Borenstein. Look, I don't know how much to credit him with all these monster movies because it's like him and 5 other writers for Godzilla, King Kong, and Godzilla Kong. So let me see the trailer. These news stories are hard to get excited about when they're like, logline kept them to wraps. And you're like,
right.
Cool. Wonderful. So show me the trailer. But right now, lukewarm interest.
Riley's a little lukewarm, Schnepp. Do you agree with that tepid response, or are you super excited about this?
I'd be more excited if it was called Star Cop. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just like, that's right, we're writing a brand new psychedelic, sci-fi future thing with me. Maybe Van Damme will show up. Star Cop.
Okay, now you got it.
Well, yeah, I don't know. You're right. It's like Hypnotic, cool name, cool title. That's all I know. And then I trust Rodriguez has the possibility of doing a great film or a mediocre film. So,
well, the real question is Borenstein, because he's the writer of it. And so if that's all we have to go on right now, I thought Godzilla was tremendous, and I liked that they held back on showing you exactly the full breadth of this creature until it paid off.
We're going to divide this table. I know it. Ellis is my only person that I can hang with.
What's weird is I feel like it might have been. Do you think they might have overly course corrected for Godzilla with Kong Skull Island, because we didn't get a whole lot of any human interest stuff in Kong. So we got right to Kong. We got a whole lot of Kong, which again I love. I'm a huge King Kong fan. I think he's going to beat Godzilla.
Look,
I'm calling the upset right now.
I didn't need to see a little kid on a couch on a TV watching some destruction of Godzilla on a small screen TV. I want to see the big screen destruction with Godzilla. So that's what I got out of Godzilla. Not a lot of monster action. Kong Skull Island, tons of monster action. I loved Kong Skull Island for that fact. And Brie Larson was like literally the Avengers. It was like Nick Fury, Loki, and Captain Marvel all hanging out together, and none of their characters mattered. Brie Larson is a photographer. Did you even remember that? Why? Because they had a scene of her in a dark room doing something. Then everything else didn't matter.
That's my question. So
like
is this the right guy to be doing a Robert Rodriguez sci-fi thriller?
Probably. The jury's out, but because he did great action. It's like he wrote great action scenes for Kong. So that's all I could say.
Okay, what can you say, Clarke?
What I can say is that I agree with Mark Reilly that
Godzilla's great?
Nope, not that part.
Damn.
That it's very hard to know who to attribute what to because these movies have so many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
That said, I very much loved Kong Skull Island. It was super fun. It was exactly what I wanted for that movie. And honestly, the only character development that I cared about was for Kong.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I was like, he's my favorite.
Yeah,
I know. So with Robert, I will say this for Robert Rodriguez, because I love the guy personally and professionally. He takes big swings.
Yeah.
He's always trying to innovate. He's always trying to be on the forefront of science fiction and action and exploitation and genre. And so I whether it's from the log line, I was like, oh, he's directing Bright, but
exactly,
a new Bright movie.
Yeah.
But I think whatever he does is going to be innovative and interesting. So I'm interested.
Okay, well, I'm interested in Tomb Raider, as I think a lot of us are, to see whether that can be a great video game adaptation movie. It comes out next month. There's a new clip that just got released that you may or may not want to check out. I don't think it gives away too much, and it actually feels a lot like part of the video game from 2013, I believe. So I just want to quickly go through the panel, and I'll start with you, Jon Schnepp. Is this a clip that fans should see if they're not sure about Tomb Raider? Is this going to win them over?
I'm just going to retitle every movie. This one's called Vikander Jumping. That's what I would call this movie. Because, I mean, look, if you've ever played Tomb Raider and then you watch this trailer, you're like, is that a cutscene from the game? That's what it feels like. It's good. I mean, if you want to see a lot of action and Alicia Vikander doing a lot of jumping and swinging and grunting, go see this movie, because I'm gonna. I think it's like, look, I like the original Tomb Raiders. It's a guilty pleasure, and I feel like this is kind of fun. It's a female Indiana Jones, so that's what we're gonna get, and they're showing you this person is capable of a lot of stuff.
I think it's actually a smart play to release this clip, and I'll tell you why. It's because it feels like the video game, and you're trying to get people who are fans of the video game into the theater. The way to do that is to show them, look, we're honoring the legacy of the video game. Now, I hope that once you get into the theater, there's some video game stuff for sure, but we're telling a story here. We're not just trying to be like, hey, remember that time when this happened in the game, or this, like in that movie Doom, when they just stopped everything and they went into that first person thing at the end, just to be like, hey kids, this is like the video game, right? We don't need any flashing lights. It's like, remember the video game?
Remember the video game?
We don't need anything. Right? We don't need that, but we just need enough to get us into the theater. Clarke Wolfe, I want you to speak in that voice for the rest of the show.
Remember Tomb Raider? Oh yeah, Tomb Raider was amazing. You guys watch South Park. South Park is so good.
Our favorite member, Barry.
It's my favorite. Berries are my favorite. Okay, well, here's why I'm gonna disagree with your point. Because if you are a fan of the video, if you're trying to go after the fans of the video game, then great, maybe mission accomplished. But if you're trying to go after average moviegoers who want to see a badass female Indiana Jones, this is not selling me. I was already not so interested in the movie in the first place, but this clip, it was literally just, and I remember because my brother played Tomb Raider, and it was her jumping and grunting, and I was just like, this is weird, because this is a movie and not a video. Like I said to Reilly when we were watching it this morning, like, so why wouldn't you just play the game? So for me, as a moviegoer who loves action and who wants to see a badass character like Lara Croft on an amazing Indiana Jones adventure, I was like, no, I don't want to see this at all.
What they're going to do, though, with every single person in the audience is give them an Xbox controller,
exactly.
and then an X and a B and an A will flash so that while she's doing those jumps, like to do a save, you have to hit those
I
buttons.
would
Feel
love
like you're
that
part
if
of the
like
action.
one seat in the theater like turns on, and if you're sitting there, you have to control it for the next 5 minutes. So everybody's gonna boo you. It's like,
Smell-o-vision.
yeah, I think that'd be amazing. Reilly, if you want to see somebody grunt and run and jump, are you watching Tomb Raider or are you watching tennis?
Well, watching tennis. I'm watching this. I mean, I want to give credit to Alicia Vikander is a wonderful actress, so I'm hoping she does something special. But yeah, everybody's already said it. We saw the video game there, Clarke. We were watching this thing, and I'm like, yeah, this is the... And she hangs a little bit, but the clip wasn't a full clip. They were definitely, it's a marketing material, because right as you're about to like see her pull herself up, it kind of jumps ahead a little bit, and then they show another thing, and you're like, and it is like the video game. Hey kids, here's the video game. And it's like, well, you don't need to show video game because you have the title. So the fans of Tomb Raider are going to go see this thing. So give us a great story and give us that Indiana Jones vibe, which I don't see an Indiana Jones vibe at all in this. And I wish they did. I think there's a way to make it fun, whether it's some real great music. There's no music. There's no understanding of like the tone of this thing, for me at least. So I hope it does well.
Okay, well, Tomb Raider comes out March 16th. It's going to be a packed March, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be like the summer starts with March, so get ready, kids. We have one more story to get to, and that is Paul King. You heard of him. He's been on the radar to do the new Willy Wonka movie, and he also now might be jumping from Paddington to Pinocchio. According to Variety, Disney is now in talks with Paddington director Paul King to helm its live-action Pinocchio retelling. Pinocchio is, of course, the classic story of a poor woodcarver who made an accidental live kid that he had to feed and clothe and care for and vaccinate. What a horror story. Ever since Paddington 2 became the most critically acclaimed picture of all time, according to Rotten Tomatoes, King has been on the industry's radar, with Warner Brothers recently getting him to helm the Willy Wonka movie. So now Disney wants to get Pinocchio into production this fall. They've been trying to get this thing off the ground for a while. Sam Mendes was actually attached to direct this a few months ago and then dropped out, probably because he read the story. He's like, that sounds horrifying. Pinocchio is a good cartoon. I do not want to see it live action. I think the Life is Beautiful guy, Roberto Benigni, did a version of Pinocchio that was live, and just like I am interested in what Pleasure Island looks like. Never when the kids turn into donkeys because they like smoke too much. I'm like, yeah, you're damn right, you skateboarding bastards. I want to see that. I don't necessarily care about a live action Pinocchio, even with the guy doing Paddington. Because look, here's the God's honest truth, and I'm not a fan of children, okay? But if I see Paddington, I fall in love with that marmalade chugging bear. I love that bear. I don't know how they're going to make me fall in love with a wooden thing that comes to life in a freakish mutation. Reilly?
I want to see your movie. I want to see your Pinocchio.
They made a bunch of them. It's called Child's Play.
Where Geppetto walks and the puppet comes to life.
And he grabs a knife and
kill it!
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's called Pleasure Island.
So listen.
It's a gritty reboot.
I'm not clamoring for a live action Pinocchio either, but listen, we're going to get every Disney animated movie is going to be live action now. These things are making billions of dollars at the box office. So this one, I haven't seen either Paddington.
What?
I know.
Me either.
Because
I know.
Because
You guys are missing
because
out.
it was a talking bear and it looked like it was for kids. But I love that it's getting 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I love that it's beloved because it's good.
It
for
melted
kids.
my cold heart. both
Yeah,
movies,
and I need some melting of this cold heart because I'm pretty jaded right now. So I am going to see Paddington sooner or later. I don't know what to think of the Pinocchio. Let's just talk about the development of it. Sam Mendes was on for a while and then dropped off and then maybe dropped. It was like James and the Giant Peach was also in there somewhere where he jumped over there. I don't know, but it looks like it's ready to go. They say production this fall or something. So it looks like it's the next one in the pipeline. It kind of goes with Dumbo, Tim Burton's Dumbo. I'm like, what? Okay. I got to see a trailer first, but I'm with you. I don't need these remakes or retellings of these wonderful animated classics because Pinocchio is hard to pull off because of what you said, Ellis. It's that look. You got to nail that look.
It's not like Disney's knocking every live action movie out of the park. Financially, they are, but we just had a fan, Anthony Shannon, tweet in and remind us that, like, look, for every Cinderella you get or Beauty and the Beast, you also have Maleficent, which made money, was not critically all that well received. Alice in Wonderland made money. Oh my God, it's tough to watch. So, Clarke Wolfe, what is Pinocchio going to end up if Paul King ends up directing it?
Well, as we discussed last week, I have not seen either Paddington, and I want to see them. I do want to see them because I've heard they're so good. And what's encouraging to me about this is that every adult that I know has been raving about these movies, which says to me that he is able to pull off that very difficult trick of making a movie that is for kids, but that grown-ups are also able to enjoy. And Pinocchio, honestly, could be the perfect story to apply that sensibility, because as you said, Mark, there's some really messed up stuff in this movie, but ultimately, I love the idea of somebody who is able to take something for kids and make it for adults that has a darkness to it. That is really cool to me. And so actually, I'm 100% on board with this. I want to see
Clarke
this.
Wolfe's going to Pleasure Island.
Nice.
You joining her?
I'm joining her. I think it's Walt Disney's Pinocchio, so we get Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
We get that. So
I do love
we get
that
a little
cricket.
hanging out. Probably it's going to be a realistic cricket, like singing "When You Wish Upon a Song." I don't know, but it's like this director is the right director to do Pinocchio for me, because having seen Paddington and Paddington 2, you could see like a sole character trying to fit in. It's like literally, it's like you could substitute the bear with Pinocchio in many ways and make it make sense. There's a lot of like things that are going to pull on the heartstrings. Now, look, I wanted to see Guillermo del Toro's
Yeah, me
Pinocchio.
too.
Yes.
I mean, so like Pinocchio is a cool. That would be Mark Ellis's. That's your trip right there.
Yeah.
That Pleasure Island Road. So I mean, there's a lot of go online and check out the development on that project. That's a pretty cool project. It could still happen. This version of Pinocchio, I'm all in. I think the director's fantastic.
Guillermo del Toro directing with like a thrash metal version of When You Wish Upon a Star.
I want to see that so bad.
I'll take that.
All
Or
right.
a haunting choir in the background.
It's just called Geppetto's Saga or whatever.
Well, there's also Geppetto with Robert Downey Jr. that was in development
Yeah.
for years.
Oh,
I think
right.
that's dead probably. If this
Good.
this goes into production, then that'll be the Pinocchio, because nobody's touching Disney's versions of these things.
Every night, get down on your knees and pray to just turn that boy back into a wooden thing that's not real. We're going to save a time for your live Twitter questions, but first I want to remind you guys that we have a new vid up on Collider Video and can subscribe right now to our YouTube channel. Tell all your cool friends about it. Marvel's Timeline Explained is now up on, that's on Collider.com. It's a cool way to kind of read through everything that has gone down in the MCU. And then on our video channel, we have Ash vs. Evil Dead, both with Ladies Night and the movie Trivia Schmodown. It was a whole lot of fun having Bruce Campbell and company in studio. They are so game for anything that you want to do with them. Great people to hang out with. And check out the new season of Ash vs. Evil Dead. We also have a new Heroes is going to be up later today. What are we talking about, Jon Schnepp?
We can talk about a lot of exciting things happening in the superhero genre.
You have not prepared your notes yet, have you?
I've totally written them last night. Everybody was here complaining because I got them in really late. But yeah, there's like it's over an hour of sweat. I mean, I can't even broach the subject. We've got like 50 different topics. Just tune in later at 2 o'clock. Stop crying.
And some new talent in the movie Trivia Schmodown. Yesterday in the Team League, we had superhero news take on box office breakdown. Different iterations of each team. It was a really fun match to call. Myself and Rachel, the Crusher Cushing, got to announce it. Check that out right now, as well as all of our Black Panther material. Spoiler review, non-spoiler review, and finally, yesterday, our live Collider movie talk from this weekend, where Jon Schnepp, myself, and Joelle Monique got to interview Ruth E. Carter, the costume designer, who will hopefully be nominated for an Oscar for her work on Black Panther. We got to sit down and have a chat with her at Black Panther Unmasked, presented by Brisk. Whole lot of fun. All that good stuff is up for your naked steaming eyeballs right now. I promised you a live Twitter question, and I deliver, and it's a fun one from Nick Leitner. He says, hey, Collider crew, if you're making a bet with a friend, the loser of that bet had to watch a bad movie of your choosing, what atrocity would you force them to sit
that is-
through?
It's on the top of my head right now. Vacation. The new
doing the
Vacation. Be
reboot of
like,
Vacation.
you got to sit through that. And then I'd skip over all the Chris Hemsworth stuff because that's funny.
See,
And
this
just
is
make
really
sure they don't
tough
get
for me.
any enjoyment.
Like, I like, I have friends and you make a bet with them and you got to pay your debt, but like, there's certain things you just never do to a friend. And one of those things is called Caddyshack 2. So I'm not going to put you through Caddyshack 2. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make you sit through it. I'm thinking it might be a really bad spoof movie, like a Meet the Spartans, but that was pretty tough too.
Let's
so
Be Cops. That's my runner-up.
I would happily say I would win the bet and sit through that.
Ugh, what a
Josh
horrible
McCougan and I
film.
Loved Let's
Garbage
Be Cops.
movie.
Clarke Wolfe, what are you making
Boy,
somebody sit
this
through?
is really tough. The first thing that came to mind was just because I went on a very bad first date to see Max Payne, and that was severely unpleasant.
Can I ask whose idea was, yours or the dates?
It was the date.
It was the dates to go see Max. And what was your initial reaction when you're walking to Max Payne? You're like, well, I'll give it a shot.
No, my initial reaction was, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a second. Although I will say, to be fair, just to say, I'm not a jerk. A date took me to see Beer Fest, and I was like, ugh, this is not going to be, and I had a blast. So I do go in with an open mind.
Well, that's because that's Broken Lizard and they rock.
But Max Payne is
play the video game, kids.
Miserable
I just
experience.
never liked the concept of going to a movie on the first date.
No, it's a bad
The
first
whole
date.
thing of a movie is you can't talk to people.
Right.
Like, you can't talk to anybody. And if you're on a date with a movie, and God forbid they take their cell phone out, it ruins it. 50 years later, I'm going to be telling our grandkids about how your evil grandma whipped out a cell phone and looked at it while we're trying to watch a movie on the first date. Reilly, will I ever find love? I'm sorry. What movie would you send to your loser friend?
Oh gosh, do you guys remember Evolution?
Yeah.
Yes.
With
That is-
Sean
wow.
William Scott?
Sean William Scott, David Duchovny,
Orlando Jones, Julianne Moore.
And a bunch
Julianne
of
Moore,
It's an
Aykroyd,
Ivan Reitman movie.
organisms and juice and flying.
That
I
movie
was
had a
lying.
resurgence. People were asking for a sequel on Twitter last year. I'm not kidding.
What is wrong with these people?
I know. Lots
That
of
is
things.
the.
I love
walked
you, Orlando
out of that
Jones.
movie.
I love you, Orlando.
I walked out of that movie. I remember being in that movie with a friend of mine where it was like one of those lazy Sundays or let's go see this movie. It looks kind of fun. Nope. It was. I purged it from my mind, thankfully, but I remember being like, we looked at each other, we're like, this is all. Like,
It's
this
almost
hurts.
unendurable. The last 40 minutes just go on forever.
That's why
It's
we walked
such a
out. We
garbage
were like,
movie.
we literally like, we feel bad. Should we go? Yeah, and we left.
Ivan
Yeah.
Reitman was in the back row, like, "Hey, where are you guys going?"
Yeah, we're leaving your shitty film.
That's right.
Yeah.
Reitman did it because we were like, well, he did Ghostbusters. You know,
Right.
it's like, let's go see this.
The last
it's like
30 minutes is
Return
trying to
Ghostbusters.
inject fluids into the anus of a giant creature. It's
There
like,
was-
can you just get on with this?
Yeah, it was
Unbelievable.
one of the worst movies, I think, because, well, aside, I'll make sure that these, I'll check the hashtag first before I decide to make this person watch it because I can't believe anybody would want a sequel to that on Twitter. What's wrong with you?
I had a big DVD buying phase in the early 2000s, and I think Evolution might have snuck in there.
Why?
I hadn't seen it yet. I just
So
assumed
you
it was.
buy it? Was it in the
It
bin?
was on sale for $4.99.
Yeah, was it
Right.
like you buy this and like Young Guns 2? and you get-
Doorbusters.
Yeah, of course I bought Young
Right.
Guns too.
Well, I know
99
that's
cent
what
special.
Sometimes they have the 2-pack.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah,
I don't know why Young
Evolution and
Guns
Young
2
Guns
and
2 is your-
Evolution.
Okay.
I was trying to find a movie that you
Right.
liked, and Young Guns 2
If
came
you
out.
like variety, check out our combo pack with
Shared
Evolution,
universe.
Young Guns 2, and The Adventures of Pluto Nash, which is another movie
There
I
it
might make
is.
a loser friend watch. That is all the time we have. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Collider Movie Talk. Quickly, Mark Reilly, where can the kids find you?
At Reilly Around, Twitter and Instagram. See you there.
Classy Clarke Wolfe.
Find my podcast, please. It's called Sending the Wolf. You can find it on all of your podcast apps. I have Alicia Malone on this week, and it was
Nice.
really fun. And she does say the words Edward Penis Hands.
I've said that on stage before.
There you go.
Okay, now I get to come back to the show. Don't worry about finding Sending the Wolf because Sending the Wolf will find you. Jon Schnepp.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Jon Schnepp. Check out my YouTube channel, The Schnepp Zone.
I am merely Mark Ellis. You can find me on Twitter and my website, markellislive.com, for all the latest tour dates, some cool announcements coming soon of future shows. See you guys tomorrow for another episode of Collider Movie Talk. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.